And welcome everyone to this council meeting, March 3rd, 2025, 6 p.m. We welcome the members of the public that are able to join us this evening, and all members of council are here. We welcome those that are participating from home, and welcome our staff who are going to give us facts and information to help us make the best decisions on behalf of the municipality. There's an amendment to the budget under item 9.4, council board committees, and 10.3.6 staff report. So we'll call this meeting to order and ask everyone to make sure their cell phones are turned off or on mute. And we'll ask everyone to rise for O Canada, please. And we'll begin our meeting with our land acknowledgement. As we gather, we are reminded that the municipality of South Huron is situated on Treaty 29 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. And as a community, we have a responsibility to honor and respect this territory's significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived, continue to live upon it, and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. In the spirit of reconciliation and truth, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting. Thank you for that. And again, welcome everyone. We'll turn to Ms. Basula Carlson, item number 3, please.
That South Huron Council approves the agenda as amended.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures at this time from members of council? Not seeing any. We have no presentations and delegations. We have 6.1. And we welcome Carolyn Baker for our presentation. Welcome, Carolyn. Proceed whenever you are. You have about 10 minutes.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor Finch, members of council.
You're on mute. I don't. Oh, sorry. We just can't quite hear. I think it's at our end here. We'll get that fixed for you. Carolyn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can now. That's great. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you for fixing that. I'm glad you have those that understand technology better than I.
Yeah.
So I'll start over again. My apologies. Good evening, Mayor Finch, members of council. Caroline Baker from Baker Planning Group. As I mentioned, I'll try to be quicker than 10 minutes to get through your agenda. I just wanted to speak this evening on behalf of Mr. Mark Steffen, who's in the audience, and Don DeJean from Trident as well, with respect to the proposed new South Huron official plan. I know I had previously delegated on this matter and specifically focusing on Crediton and the changes to the settlement area. But I did just want to provide a few follow-up items as I was able to listen to your council meeting 2 weeks ago and some of the questions that were asked between council and staff and some of the discussions. If acceptable, do you mind if I just share screen for a moment?
Absolutely. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Okay, that should be up. Oh, they're up and loaded in front of you. Just 3 short slides. I just wanted to speak to a few minutes again in terms of the land areas proposed for retention and removal in Crediton. We certainly understand the planning opinion being rendered related to right sizing Crediton, some of the growth that's occurred. However, questions still remain about some of the rationale into the final recommendations of land area. You'll note that Mr. Stebbins' land is supposed to remove about 17.5 acres. There was some questions we had about the rationale for the land on the south east corner, which would be Mr. Palin's land. All of that land holding, even though it's larger than Mr. Stebbins and does not have any planning applications or approvals, is all remaining in the settlement area. That was question number 1. Along with the fact that that property does have some regulated area from ABCA. And a further question, as you'll see on the far east of Crediton, is there a significant number of properties with undeveloped rear yards that are entirely in the floodplain, but are being maintained in the settlement area. And because of that retention in the settlement area, that acreage actually counts towards the land supply in the calculation that's being undertaken to meet the provincial planning statement. Again, if we looked at those 2 components of lands that are in the floodplain, that would result in close to the same amount of land that Mr. Stefan is requesting remain on his property in the settlement area. I did just also want to bring forward again the conceptual work that's been done by Trident. I think we noted they are looking for a range of residential uses, including more attainable housing. And certainly you'll see that this concept uses all the land that's currently in the settlement area, again, to take benefit of where the access is from Victoria Avenue East, as well as the grade and topography of the land being lower on the east and allowing for some efficient stormwater management. Following up to questions from council 2 weeks ago, I can confirm that both the property owner and Trident have undertaken 2 formal consultations with county and municipal staff. They've completed an archaeological assessment. They've completed a functional servicing brief. Their project team has also reviewed the water and wastewater master plan that's on council this evening to be fully aware of the servicing capacities and constraints within the Crediton system. They certainly look forward to filing formal planning applications. The reason they haven't been filed to date is they wanted to ensure that this process was completed. I didn't want to step in front of it with applications while this new official plan was being completed and consideration of the settlement area. I would note in terms of impact and implications, if those 17.5 acres are removed from Mr. Stefan's land, if that land should want to be contemplated for development again, they would have to submit a comprehensive official plan amendment, application, and process, which I'm sure you can appreciate is a lengthy and costly process. And certainly being mindful of the intent to include smaller lots and more attainable, adding that extra step and planning approval certainly complicates future planning applications for comprehensive planning on that property. I will leave my comments there, but certainly I'm available this evening should there be any questions of clarification or other questions I could assist by answering. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Yeah, thank you for dropping the screen. Go ahead, Councillor McLeod-Haggett.
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. Just checking where Street J is going in off of Victoria Ave. So I believe the property surrounding that entrance there is the Regular Trip and Easterbrook property. Is that roadway there large enough for in and out for two vehicles? Because I don't think that it's quite wide enough.
Carolyn?
Through the mayor, thank you for that question. Certainly that proposed road access is 20 meters in width at Victoria, extending fully to the north, which meets the typical municipal standard for a full municipal road with the necessary 2 lanes of traffic. Boulevard, sidewalk would meet the standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Carolyn, for the presentation tonight. On the subdivision map that you have presented to us, our proposed subdivision, there's some green areas on the map. Could you explain what those are and how many acres they possibly are? because we're looking at carving 17 acres, or that's what's in the draft official plan right at the moment. Just wondering how many acres are in those green areas approximately.
Certainly, through the mayor, might it help if I share screen again? I can just point to
Yeah.
the green spaces just to help. Sometimes I know it's hard to talk about a concept without having it in front of you. So within the development, now that I believe it's up on your screen, I can see it loaded there. You'll see 3 green locations. Full disclosure, this lighter green is the proposed stormwater management block, so not necessarily an active or passive recreation space. This concept includes a smaller parkette in the middle of the site, in and around where the land lease was proposed. And then another park space was proposed adjacent to the existing park and ball diamond. That was very intentional, not only to provide more park space, but to give frontage to the park. So it would have frontage on 2 streets and provide connectivity through the neighborhood. We did have some discussions with staff that the parkland proposed on this site does not meet the full 5%. As you know, in a plan of subdivision, 5% is either given in land for park or in cash or in some combination. So in this development, it would be a combination of land and then park or cash land park in lieu that could be used for the existing park for upgrades, ongoing improvements for park space. Certainly, I understand Trident's very open to municipal feedback about the size and location of park. This was just a proposal to put for the municipality.
Thanks, Carolyn. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks. And yes, the parkland is one thing. I just didn't know how big that stormwater area was, because we're talking 17 acres carving out and potentially out of the settlement area. And this, you know, is probably 5 or 6 acres. So, you know, the difference is, you know, a lot smaller than the 17 acres. So trying to come up with just a thought process of how many acres we're looking at here versus having the whole property in the settlement area. So thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, I'm just trying to understand on your map versus the map, the option C, we'll call it map. There's a dotted boundary all around the subdivision, and also takes in a part of land that I don't believe was even on option C. So it's the land, that huge vacant piece surrounded by a dotted line to the north of the subdivision. When I kind of look at, I'm trying to look at the existing houses on King Street North. And on our option C, our bold line ends at the end of, like, say, maybe there's 10 homes there, but the dotted line goes beyond those homes. At least that's what I'm getting out of what I'm looking at here. So maybe you could clarify for me what it is we're looking at with your dotted line.
Carolyn?
Of course, certainly happy to clarify through the mayor, and thank you for that question, Councillor Vaughn. On the concept, I believe you're referring to, there's a larger dotted line with land, sorry, it's on the screen here, with what appears to be agricultural land. So that is part of the overall land holding that Mr. Stefan owns. So he would own everything within the black line except this access to Victoria that's owned by a different property owner. The piece to the north that's outside where you see proposed lots was not in the settlement area in the current official plan and continues to not be in the settlement area. And Mr. Stefan is requesting no changes to that. So that would remain as agricultural land as it currently is and in the future.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions from members of council? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Carolyn, for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
You too. Take care. Ms. Masood, call us when you're ready.
The South Huron Council receives a delegation from Baker Planning Group regarding the Crediton settlement area as presented by Caroline Baker.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Next item, we skip number 7 and go to number 8.1, please.
That South Huron Council adopts the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 18th, 2025 as printed and circulated.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Dietrich, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 9.1 and point 2, please.
That the minutes and agenda packages of the following committees and or boards be received as presented to council. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, draft minutes of January 28th, 2025, and agenda package of February 25th, 2025. Committee of Adjustment, draft minutes of February 13th, 2025, and February 18th, 2025.
A mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 9.3, please.
That South Huron Council receives the Exeter Business Improvement Area Draft Annual General Meeting Minutes of the February 19th, 2025. And that South Huron Council approves the Exeter Business Improvement Area 2025 budget and the names of the Exeter BIA Board of Management as received.
And a mover, please. Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor McLeod-Haggett. Any discussion? Councillor Oak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just reviewing the numbers. I'm the numbers guy with the budget, and I guess I just have a comment that I'm a little concerned about using $26,000 in reserves to fund this coming year's budget, and wondering because that's not sustainable. Another year and the reserve's gone. So just wondering whether there was discussion about that at the meeting, and maybe Councillor Wendy could give us a comment.
Councillor McLeod-Haggett.
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. There was great discussion about the agenda at our last board meeting and at the AGM. Our new BIA manager got a lot of new initiatives that she is planning to do, and she's got a line of grant opportunities that she's looking into, and hoping that the new Ontario Rural Investment opportunities that Lisa Thompson's brought forward will also help fund different projects such as the beautification and events.
Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Oak? No. Any other questions from members of council? Not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 9.4, please.
This one's a budget amendment proposed. That South Huron Council receives the Heritage Advisory Committee draft minutes of February 19th, 2025, and approves the following recommendations. That council consider dedicating one of the silos for the community improvement plan to Heritage, and an upset limit of $10,000 for the purchase of 10 metal plaques for South Huron Heritage Designate properties to be purchased and distributed to Heritage designated property owners. And that council approves a budget amendment to allocate $7,000 from the working fund reserve for the purchase of the plaques.
Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by, is there a seconder, please? It's Councillor Oak. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Finch. The Heritage Committee has been working towards a commemorative plaque program since the Heritage Survey was released by the municipality at the beginning of 2024. A common theme in the responses of the survey was a lack of awareness or celebration of heritage in the community. So based on the survey responses, there is a genuine interest in heritage preservation, but also pride in our built and natural heritage. Indeed, our official plan recognizes natural, built, and cultural heritage. Heritage arises 109 times in the official plan amendment presented to council this evening. In addition to surveying residents about heritage, the committee also asked residents about the idea of a commemorative plaque program to recognize the unique built history that South Huron has in its designated properties. The committee thinks that this will do two things: recognize and celebrate the property owners who are stewards of this unique asset, these unique assets, and also promote to the public the importance and cultural value that these properties have in regards to South Huron's story. Over 75% of the respondents either strongly agreed or agreed to the statement having a commemorative plaque visible on currently designated properties would be a good way of recognizing heritage value in the community. The committee has reached out to each of the owners of the designated properties, and they are excited with the idea and are hopeful that council move forward with budgeting for the plaques. These properties include the Huron Country Playhouse Theatre Building in Grand Bend, Stephen Ward, the Henry Eilber House in Crediton in Stephen Ward, the Carling House in Exeter, the Hooper House in Exeter, and the Strang Farmhouse in Osborne Ward. The two remaining designated properties in South Huron are the Stephen Township Arena in Huron Park, Stephen Ward, and the Exeter Town Hall, which is owned by the municipality. The committee researched different materials and companies that produce plaques and are hoping to purchase bronze or aluminum cast circular plaques that bear the Municipality of South Huron logo and the words designated property. They chose this material over other cheaper vinyl material to ensure durability. Many municipalities have plaque programs similar to this, bearing aluminum and bronze plaques, and specifically modeled this program after London, Stratford, and Woodstock's plaque program. As you may note, the committee is also proposing to purchase 10 plaques while there are only 7 designated properties. We also considered doing them all at once, as the company that the committee contacted that produces plaques indicated that we could receive a volume discount. We are hoping that by recognizing some designated properties that we may see some of the listed properties also designate. We currently have 3 listed properties in South Huron. There is the potential interest in designating them, and our goal is to see more listed and designated properties in South Huron. There is a wealth of unlisted and undesignated built heritage properties that are throughout the municipality. When it comes to numbers, according to the Ontario Heritage Register, we are behind our neighbors when it comes to fully designated properties. Blue Water at 37, Huron East 32, Central Huron 12, Stratford 91, Goderich 51, Lambton Shores 77. So council had originally budgeted $3,000 for the Heritage Committee annually, but since its creation, the committee has not spent any of its budgeted money, hence the ask for a budget amendment this evening. The committee also received a presentation on the Community Improvement Program and is excited about the prospect of having heritage be included as one of the silos of the South Huron Community Improvement Program. The committee feels that heritage be included as the public recognizes the importance of built and natural heritage and that preservation and enhancement of cultural assets to be a part of the future of South Huron.
Well said, Mr. Neeb. Councilor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a clarification on the silos. What do we mean by the silos in the community improvement plan? I'm not 100% sure I'm aware of those silos, or maybe we have had them presented and I need a restatement of what those silos are.
Mr. Coulson.
Through the mayor, they haven't been finalized yet. So what we've done is our first initial CIP to council had, I believe it was 4 or 5 high level business areas or buckets or silos for the CIP. That's what we're working with now after the official plan. Now that we're in the finalized stages, we're finalizing what the buckets or silos will be and be bringing it back to council for approval and discussion. So what I believe the Heritage Advisory Committee is wanting one of those buckets to be boat heritage. Does that clarify?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Councilor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yes, Councillor Neeb, I'm just wondering if you did mention some of the designated properties already, and 2 of them, Town Hall, Stephen Arena, and I got the farm in Usburn, Strang Farm in Usburn. What other properties did you mention? I didn't catch them all.
Right, Councilor Neeb, whenever you're ready.
So the designated properties include the Huron Country Playhouse Theatre Building in Grand Bend, the Henry Eilber House in Crediton, the Carling House in Exeter, the Hooper House in Exeter, the Strang Farmhouse in Osborne, and Town Hall in the Stephen Arena.
Right, thanks. Thanks for that. And you did mention that you had been in touch with, maybe not you, but the committee had been in touch with all of the property owners for these heritage parcels. And they thought it was a good idea. Did they give you an indication of, like, once they get this sign, that it would be on their property for a committed time period? Because $1,000 a sign is a hefty price tag. And so I'm wondering what was the discussion around that?
Councillor Deep?
Well, I guess there's two things. We're proposing an upset limit of 10,000 just due to the fact that the quotes that we received were about 6 months ago. So based on what we got 6 months ago, roughly $700 per plaque, but that there would also be HST included on that. So we went with the upset limit to ensure that we were able to cover the cost. To answer your second question, that's something we would have to arrange with the property owners. So if they are a designated property, where is it going to be placed? We're hoping that it's placed in a visible location, and it would be on the building as long as it's designated. If it's no longer designated, then that sign would be returned to the municipality. So we're looking at what sort of an agreement can we have with the property owners to ensure that if it does stay designated, the plaque will stay up. And if it's not designated, then it has to be returned to the municipality. So that's kind of where we're at. We have rough ideas of what that would look like, but we have to sit down as a committee and speak with our clerk and decide about the best way of going about that.
Councillor Vaughn, follow up?
Oh, thanks.
Great, thank you. Councillor Oak?
Yeah, thank you. So one question I had, and I don't know if it's something that could be answered or not, but I read an article on the weekend that Kingston Council had designated a property heritage, and the people decided that they wanted to back out of it because they were informed that their insurance was going to triple with the heritage designation. So I'm just wondering if there's been any investigation on that, or if there's been any discussion on that, if the property owners themselves have investigated that. So I just read that, and I just wanted to bring it up for protection of or possible protection needed, sort of thing. So,
Councillor Deep?
So I guess to answer two of the questions, and the one thing that I think we need to keep in mind with heritage designated properties is that the property owner can have that designation removed. They can come to council and ask to have that removed. We have 7 property owners that have kept them designated. I know that one of the property owners contacted their insurance when they were going about the designation process, and it did not affect their premiums at all. The government of Ontario also, there's a document online talking about heritage designation. One of the things it states is insurance premiums should not go up because of a heritage designation. I think it depends on the type of premium you're getting, whether you're looking for a replacement cost of like for the heritage asset, or whether you're just looking for replacement. So I think it heavily depends on your insurer. And I think that's something too that, that's firmly in the court of the designated property owners to make that decision and go with an insurer that they feel comfortable with. The one thing to keep in mind too is the bylaw does not stipulate anything about insurance or replacement as well. It's purely designation. So I'm not quite sure what the story is, but something that we can do as a committee is go out to local insurers and ask that question and find out, like, what are the options? Because I don't think it's just one option for if you're a designated property owner, your cost is going to be this much. Because what I'm grappling with is I don't understand how the risk would be any different prior to designation or after. It's the same building. Right.
Councillor Oak?
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring it up to the committee's attention that is out there, and maybe it's something that the committee could investigate on behalf of the designated properties if they haven't investigated, or to have in their arsenal when you're talking to other prospective heritage property designees.
Councillor Need?
Yep, no, I think it's worthwhile to look into. I think, you know, that is something that we can bring forward. I don't think it's council's intention at all to ever try to increase anyone's insurance costs at all. And I think it's, you know, contingent to upon the property owner and us to be aware of what the implications are. But based on what I've heard and seen in South Huron, there has not been any cases where insurance premiums have arisen because of the designation. And the one thing I think we need to keep in mind is these are unique heritage assets, and we should be thankful that we have people in our municipality that are willing to be stewards of some of these assets for the long term. And I think that should be celebrated and recognized.
Councillor McLeod-Hagan?
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. Just wondering, has your committee looked into any other grant options that might be available to them?
There's some grants, but it heavily depends on what kind of program. This is a capital. I'm doubtful there are any capital programs specifically for heritage. There used to be the Huron Heritage Fund at the county, but that was discontinued, I believe, last year. So again, I think the rationale behind them coming to council is that there are plaque programs in other municipalities that are supported by municipalities. And again, with the importance of heritage coming up over and over again in our official plan, that it'd be worthwhile for us to make this what I would see as a minor investment into these properties and the property owners who are taking carriage of over these properties.
Deputy?
Yeah, I wonder if I could, or if we could get the CAO to maybe explain our grant policy and where it's at. Thank you.
Councillor Carlson?
So our grant, the Sunset Foundation grant policy, or just as far as for the Heritage Committee? Just requesting clarification.
The municipalities grant policy.
Okay. At this time, what the municipality has done is to be providing money to the Sunset Foundation to be distributed. Other than that, as far as a grant program that the municipality has, there are a few grants. There are MOUs to different organizations, as well as an agreement with the Huron Country Playhouse, those types of grants. But other than that, there's not usually other grants that are provided through the municipality directly.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the follow-up. So would this fall under the Sunshine Foundation grant? I don't know whether this will, it should, but is that a place where we could apply for this grant?
Councillor Carlson?
Excuse me. The challenge with this particular is it's a committee of council. So it would be in essence council applying to the Sunset Foundation for one of their committees. And as far as the agreement for the grant program is that the municipality will not partner with any organization for any of the grants if they don't have charitable status themselves.
Well, okay. Anybody else have any comments? Councillor Oak?
Yeah, thank you. I did read somewhere, and I can't find it now, the idea of awarding somebody a heritage designation at maybe at the business gala, or potentially introducing something like that. I think that's a great idea if there was some sort of a spot where, you know, something like that moving forward might be a nice touch, but that would be a conversation with, you know, the BIA and chamber with, but I can't remember where I read that, but just, I'm not sure if you guys commented on that, Councillor Neat.
I believe one of the members of the committee, so Jess Gill, was hoping to reach out to the chamber and the BIA, and the one thing that was brought up was the idea that, you know, as private owners, if you make sympathetic improvements that are like that are sympathetic, sorry, to the heritage elements that are in an area, that they could be awarded a certificate, basically to recognize the fact that they have gone above and beyond and making improvements, but also sympathetic to the style of say the downtown or other heritage elements. So that's something like we're still toying with, and I'm not sure if Jess has reached out to the chamber or the BIA, but definitely something easy to recognize. Again, I'll come back to just the idea of the plaque and instilling some for these property owners recognition for their work, but also visibility in the community. Again, we talk about heritage quite a bit, and it's come up a number of times in this term of council from members of the public, and we've received petitions related to heritage. We've completed surveys. It is important that it be recognized and also be visible, and I think that's the intention behind this plaque program, is to have a plaque on these buildings that is visible to people who are coming to the community, but also people who live in the community.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, Councillor Dietrich, go ahead.
Thank you to the mayor. Was mentioned about Blue Water being in the heritage quite heavily, more than what we are maybe. And I think they're maybe speaking of Bayfield. So that's quite a tourist attraction. Do you think that we would get the same bang for our dollar for what we're investing as what Blue Water would be there?
Councillor Neat?
Maybe. Maybe not, but I think the importance is that we are preserving some of the built heritage that we have in our community and recognizing it for future generations, right? And that's something that maybe we take for granted now, but you know, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, there's going to be a question, what was our community like back then? What are some of the stories? You know, how did we get here, basically? And as much as we want to look forward, I think it's important too that we also look back. So this is, I think, more of a community endeavor than just tourism. But tourism can factor into that. It can be a part of placemaking. Placemaking starts with recognizing your stories and recognizing what you have, right?
Well, I do know that I did issue permits up there, and the people that were building and rebuilding put a lot of money in it themselves to keep that type of heritage deal going. And that was to draw the crowd as well here. So maybe your members don't mind paying a little towards it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Councillor McLeod-Haggett.
So just looking at the upset amount that you're looking at, perhaps rather than spending the money on that today, just given financially where our society is, do we put the heritage stuff on the or on our new website, and there's a section there that they're identified?
Councillor Neave, do you want to respond?
So currently we do have them recognized on our website. And again, this is heavily informed by the survey that had been sent out, and I believe council received that about over a year ago. And in that, there was a lot of comments about visibility of heritage, but also not knowing what some of these stories are. And also recognizing the fact that we don't have as many designated properties, or that it's not celebrated in the same way as it is in other communities. And so that's kind of what set the committee on this path over the last year. And again, in the minutes leading up to tonight, there has been a pretty clear delineation between, you know, what our goals are with this plaque program, and why we're moving towards it is so that we can kind of solve that issue that was identified in the survey.
Councillor Oak?
Yeah, just maybe the CEO could talk to the procurement policy with a committee of council. Would there be a requirement for like 3 quotes for this amount, or what is the amount for a committee? Just wondering.
You're testing me here, but yes, it would be, our procurement policy would be the staff lead. So it would be whatever, I believe, is it 15,000, under 15,000 is the manager that can proceed with it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'd like to speak to it. Deputy? First of all, well done, Mr. Neeb. I think you nailed a lot of the things I was going to say, so I would totally agree with you. This is a budget amendment. This is what we have to look at. Are we interested in supporting our committees? And I think this is a very important committee. It was important enough to create, so we have to get behind it. This also helps build our community. South Huron is still struggling to be South Huron and connect each other across. This is representing Osborne, Exeter, and Stephen wards, and would bring us together and make us a unit, a complete unit. Because for years we've heard it's Exeter, it's Stephen, it's Osborne. Well, this would actually be something that would tie us all together as a community, and I think it's a really good positive message to send to the public. People come here for our heritage. I don't know how many times I walk uptown and I see people coming to town and I ask them where they're from, and they love our Victorian age downtown. So it tells me that it is a draw for us. So we have to be very appreciative of that. We're trailing behind other municipalities. That's reality. If we continue to trail behind, we'll be in last place forever. So we need to be ahead of the game. We're talking a very minor amount in a budget our size. We would be supporting our committee. I think it's a win-win for everyone. We need to get ahead of it. And if we don't, like I say, we're going to be left behind. But we need to build our community, and we need to start somewhere. So I think this is where we need to start. I took a walk downtown today at near the intersection of Ann Street and Main, and there's a heritage plaque there from South Huron Heritage Advisory Committee from 2017 that talks about the commercial hotel. I'm not sure if anybody's seen it, but I have talked to people who've been visiting here, and maybe I'll be near that plaque over the years, and I point that out to them. I've referred other people to that plaque. It's very important to remember our heritage. So those are my comments. But again, like I say, let's bring pride to our community and let's support our Heritage Committee. Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Councillor McLeod-Haggett.
Mine's more of a comment than a question. You both are saying about maintaining our heritage, but are you not the council that wanted to close down the Stephen Arena rather than maintaining it at one point?
There's always discussions at the time with Stephen Arena. That was a council decision to keep it open. But there was discussions as to what to do, so we had to have a fulsome discussion at the time. Councillor Neeb?
Well, I think one of the things that came up during that discussion too was that it was a designated property, right? There was no conversation about de-designating it. And it's the same with our town hall. It is a designated heritage building. Now we do have reign over what we do with our town hall. But I think that's something important too to realize is the community rallied behind this building to save it 40, 50 odd years ago. Yeah, I'm wondering if we get a recorded vote.
Absolutely, yes. Any other comments at this time? Councillor Dietrich, go ahead.
Just for information, how many Century Farms are out there that could use a plaque maybe?
Councillor Oak, would you know?
I don't know the number, but I was going to comment about the Century Farm. We used to have a program at least once a council term, or maybe every other year, where we'd recognize any new Century Farms, or if anybody had hit like 125 years or 150 years. And that was part of the Heritage Committee, that we'd have a Century Farm night, and so thanks for bringing that up, Councillor Dietrich, because I think that would be another good avenue to work on as the Heritage Committee as well. Thank you.
Councillor Neeb, go ahead.
Yep, absolutely. I can bring that back to the committee. And one thing that we have been looking at is bringing in the Ontario Barn Preservation Society from Ontario. They do a lot of great work in preserving a lot of some of these old bank barns, but also recognizing and documenting them across Ontario. And so we were looking at also bringing them in, given the number of bank barns and also the pride that a lot of agricultural families have in those barns. Again, you see a lot of them still up because of the stories, because of the memories that people have over them. And I think that's something, with the built heritage and a lot of these homes and residences that are designated, that's something that we want to preserve as well.
Great, yeah. And for the record, I actually grew up on a Century Farm, so 6th generation now, I believe it is. So anyways, any other questions at all before we go to the recorded vote? Okay, Madam Clerk.
The South Huron Council receives the Heritage Advisory Committee draft minutes of February 19th, 2025, and approves the following recommendations. The council consider dedicating one of the silos for the community improvement plan to Heritage, and an upset of $10,000 for purchase of 10 metal plaques for South Huron Heritage designate properties to be purchased and distributed to Heritage designated property owners. And the council approves a budget amendment to allocate $7,000 from the working fund reserve for the purchase of the plaques. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Councillor Neeb called for a recorded vote. Deputy Mayor Dietrich. Sorry,
Microphone,
could you
please.
use your microphone?
No.
Councillor Neeb,
Yes.
Councillor Oak,
Yes.
Councillor Vaughn,
No.
Mayor Finch,
Yes.
Councillor Dietrich,
No.
Councillor McLeod-Higgett.
No.
So that is defeated. 3 votes yes, 4 votes no.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, please. 10.3.1, I believe.
That South Huron Council receives staff report ESD 04-2025, the 2024 federal wastewater reporting for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Next item, please.
That South Huron Council received staff report ESD 05-2025, the 2024 annual performance assessment summary report for the Exeter wastewater treatment facility for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor McLeod-Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 10.3.3.
That South Huron Council received staff report TSD 02-2025, tender results 2025 provision of crushed granular M for road maintenance and shoulder gravel, and that South Huron Council accept the tender received from the low bidder, Mackenzie and Henderson Limited, and authorize the award of a contract for the provision of crushed granular M for road maintenance and shoulder gravel in the amount of $531,216, excluding HST.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Councillor Oak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I just had a question. Or maybe it could be explained, Shane, a little bit on the tender. The 30,000 ton tender, and that includes 600 ton of gravel that goes to the Osborne Works yard, and in that 30,000, there's also 3,000 tons in addition to that 600. So 30,000 is the total, and 3,000 is going to be used for shouldering gravel, and that all of this gravel is all delivered to South Huron. The way I'm reading that with the price.
Through Mayor Finch, yes, that's correct. So 30,000 delivered on the roads, and then 600 to the stockpile, and then 3,000 for the shoulder gravel.
So 33,600, and it's all delivered to South Huron. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Timmermans? Not seeing, we have, Councillor Dietrich, go ahead.
Thank you to the mayor. Is that about equivalent to what we had last year, Shane?
Through Mayor Finch, no, we are up about 5,000 tons more applied to the road. This is where we should be, is at the 30,000 to 31,000 threshold for the maintenance.
Thank you, Councillor Oak.
And just as a refresher, this with our policy or what we have today, we do about half the roads every other year. Could you just explain that again for me?
Mr. Timmermans?
Through Mayor Finch. So yes, it's every other year would get the application of fresh gravel. So on the Osborne side, there's the west side. So it'd be from like say Hearn Line east to number 4. West would be Brunson Line to the lake. And then the east sides are vice versa.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Timmermans. The next item, 10.3.4. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor. I guess the question I had is the 3,000 ton for shouldering. It's not part of this report. It's to the next or to the Corbett Huron Street project. Just wondering why that got pulled out of this report and moved over to the other project, I guess.
Dear Mayor Finch, to do a separate tender for 3,000 ton isn't, you can do it, but to them, that's not a lot of gravel. So it's better cost effective if we put it all together. And then I just broke it out in the report.
Thank you. Okay, 10.3.4 now, please.
The South Huron Council received staff report TSD 03-2025, supply and application of dust suppressant on gravel roads. And that South Huron Council accepts the tender received from the low bidder, Adamar Dust and Ice Control Limited, and authorizes the award of the contract for supply and application of dust suppressant on gravel roads in the amount of $154,448, excluding HST.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor McLeod-Haggett. Any discussion? Councillor Oak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The company that was the lowest tender, have we used them in the past?
Through you, Mayor Finch. They have done work in South Huron. It sounds like it was quite a while ago. References were checked and
Thank you. Councillor Oak?
Yeah, just to follow up. So it's 392 flake tons. How does that compare with other years as far as the volume?
through Mayor Finch, volume's been the same for the last 4 years. It was upped prior, not a lot, but just a little bit more. Each block on general is around 3 to 3.5 flake ton is our aim, except for there's a few blocks that get a double pass because they're so wide. Line 17 sections of a sawble, so they get around 5.5 flake ton.
And one last question, just it's been brought to my attention and I've noticed it traveling the roads. It's not all the roads get the same amount for the whole length of the road. There seems it's noticeable where there's a gap where there happens to be no houses for a while, that it doesn't seem like as heavy as a coating. Is there a different application on the roads?
To your Mayor Finch, yes, there is different applications. So let's say South Road. There's no one that lives on there. It's a skinny road, small road. So yes, it gets down around 3 to 2.8 flake ton. Generally, whether there's no residents or not, depending on traffic is the biggest thing, is if South Road doesn't see a lot of vehicles in a day. So, but other ones that are the general traffic, 3.5 lake ton throughout the whole block.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question all in favor. And that carries with 7. Thank you. 10.3.5.
That South Huron Council receives staff report TSD 04-2025. Tender results for resurfacing Corbett Line between Crediton Road to Mount Carmel Drive and Huron Street West from Airport Line to Town Boundary. And that South Huron Council accepts the tender received from the low bidder, JR Excavating Limited, for resurfacing Corbett Line and Huron Street West in the amount of $635,780, excluding HST.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Vaughn, second by Councillor McLeod-Haggett. Any discussion? Councillor Oak?
Just a clarification, have we used this company before for anything recently?
Through Mayor Finch, no, we have not used JR for any paving projects. They are a large company that does do quite a bit of paving.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Call the question all in favor. And that carries with 7. Thank you. 10.3.6, please.
This is a budget amendment. That South Huron Council receives staff report TSD 05-2025. Tender results for replacement of 1-ton truck with aluminum dump box, budget amendment. And the South Huron Council accepts the tender received from the low bidder, Downtown Auto Group, and authorizes the award of a contract for the replacement of a 1-ton truck with aluminum dump box in the amount of $102,586, excluding HST. And the South Huron Council approves an amendment to the budget to increase the capital budget for the replacement of a 1-ton truck with aluminum dump box from $101,760 to $104,391.51. And that South Huron Council authorizes the use of the Transportation Capital Reserve in the amount of $2,631.51 to fund the project due to unforeseeable price increases.
The mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Councillor Dietrich, go ahead, please.
I kind of forget what department sorry, Mayor. What department gets this new truck?
Shane?
Through Mayor Finch, transportation.
Any other questions at all? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. Call the question all in favor, and that carries with 7. Thank you. Next item, please. 10.3.7.
That South Huron Council receives staff report ID 01-2025, tender results for Victoria Avenue East reconstruction, and that South Huron Council accepts the tender from the low bidder, Omega Contractors, Inc., and authorize award of a contract for the Victoria Street East reconstruction in the amount of $2,131,805.50, including HST.
And a mover, please. Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just a question. I'm looking at the sanitary and the water, each one individually as far as dollar figures. And I understand we can't do anything this year, but I would like to see us bring back some kind of report or something that we can put into our budget for next year to have a look at the cost of water or sewer when we're doing these roads. And I don't know whether that's possible or not. I see Don's on there. Maybe he could speak to it a little bit.
Mr. Giverson, are you able to?
Through you, Mayor Finch. Yes, it's a very timely topic because we're awarding or we're requesting authorization to award this contract, and there is a significant amount of road restoration costs that are included with the water and sewer. So before we start the 2026 budget process, that would be good information to provide to council.
Deputy, go ahead.
Thank you again. Would that include our storm sewers also? Because I see it's on here and it's a fair size number also.
Mr. Kyverson?
Through you, Mayor Finch, yes, staff do owe council a report on user pay for storm sewer systems. That is a much bigger project to do. But yes, we can, staff can bring back a report to council to outline what it's going to entail to develop and implement a user pay system for storm.
Thank you. Follow up.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Don, for your answers. Just wondering, on projects like this, just for my information, what I&I strategy do we have with these kind of projects? Have we implemented a strategy with these projects? Obviously, if there's an illegal hookup or something that we find or whatever, that's one thing, but is there any other strategies we're doing with these?
Mr. Kyverson?
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. All of our reconstruction projects, replacing and upgrading the underground infrastructure. So one way to the I&I, so there's infiltration, so there's inflow and infiltration. So by replacing some very leaky sanitary sewer pipes with a better quality pipe with modern gasketed joints, and also replacing the manholes with boots. So they're rubber type coupling where the pipe joins the manholes also is employed on all reconstruction projects to reduce the amount of leakage or infiltration into the sanitary piping system. But also on these reconstruction projects, it's also an opportunity to look for illegal connections or connections that at one time were legal to do before there were changes with the plumbing code. It was legal to connect like a weeping tile around a foundation to your sanitary service. So when we're doing these reconstruction projects, we're also looking for any types of connections where there's storm water that would be connected to the sanitary and make all attempts to separate it so that the storm water is directed to the storm sewers. We also have employed for quite a few years installing a storm service or a storm PDC for a sump pump connection. And this has gone a long ways to reducing illegal sump pump discharges into the sanitary system. And also it helps to encourage residents to install sump pumps where they have a pipe where they can pump to. So yeah, there's been a well-established system to reduce I&I on all our reconstruction projects. And this is something we've also put forward to the MOE as part of our strategy to reduce I&I.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Vaughn?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Don, I'm looking at this particular project, especially the part for 2025, or I'm going to point to that first, where we have a category of road restoration costs, and it's broken out into each of the different components: sanitary, water main, storm, and road, and it accounts for about a third of the total project cost in 2025. So when I was looking at this, I'm thinking this kind of took me mentally back to the conversation that we were having when we went through the water and wastewater study that we just had a couple of weeks ago. So is this a good example of where users of the sanitary system and the water system are actually paying for a good component of road work? Was this what you were talking about in terms of a council decision made years ago that had users paying for road work?
Mr. Giverson.
Through you, Mayor Finch, exactly correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions at this time? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 10.4.1, please.
That South Huron Council received staff report FIN 02 2025 2024 Annual Report Planning Act Fees, Section 42, for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 10.4.2.
That South Huron Council received staff report FIN 03 2025 Annual Report on Lease Financing Agreements, for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. 4.3.
That South Huron Council received staff report FIN 04 2025. It's a 2024 Statement of Remuneration and Expenses, for information.
And a mover, please. Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. 10.4.4.
That South Huron Council received staff report CL 04 2025, Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner, IPC, Annual Reporting.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. Next item, 10.4.5.
That South Huron Council received staff report CL 05 2025, Alternative Voting Methods 2026 Municipal and School Board Election. And the council authorizes the use of the internet and telephone-based voting for the 2026 election cycle. And that the bylaw be brought back for the required 3 readings for council consideration. And the council authorizes staff to proceed in a joint municipal RFP process with lower tier Huron County municipalities for an election voting method provided for the next election cycle, 2026.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn.
Yes. Okay. So in the report, it speaks to the province of Ontario basically taking over the voters list for this go around. And so I'm thinking of one challenge that we had in the last election, and it probably went back over other elections as well. And that's the challenge of residents of properties versus owners outright of entire properties. So I'm basically talking about owners of apartments versus renters in apartments who have the right to vote in our elections. And in certain situations, it gets to even bigger population base, like Huron Park. As an example, and then Grand Cove as an example out in the Stephen area, where there was a move from staff to try to get those entities, the owners, if you will, to give up-to-date information so we could inform our voters lists. And from the results of those owners lists, or from going out and actually knocking door to door, I found that they really weren't helping us out greatly in some of these areas. And so now that it's moved to the province, I'm thinking even less. So, because I don't know if the province has designs on going out to owners and asking for information as to who actually lives in your community. I'm just wondering what it is we can do, if anything. I do know that staff went out to many of these areas and tried to get people on the voters list. And I commend, you for doing it, especially you, Rebecca, because you were the clerk in the last one. And you had a whole team helping you out. But what can we do at the municipal level to be, to ensure that we're getting a good number of people on the voter list earlier, and not finding out when we're in the throes of an election and trying to play catch up? Because I felt that's what we were doing the last time.
Madam Clerk.
So through the chair, so with Elections Ontario actually taking over and it being kind of a combined joint list now, what staff found previous elections, because MPAC took lead for municipal elections, and with the Ontario provincial elections taking place usually a couple months in advance, they did note that somebody would be on the voters list for the provincial election, but not on the municipal because it was based on MPAC providing that information. So Elections Ontario actually has more, I guess, avenues to get the information compared to what MPAC did. So we're hopeful that by already having more information, we did find that a lot of individuals at the previous election had said, hey, I got a voter card. I just voted in the provincial election, but I didn't in this one. So hopefully with Elections Ontario taking over this responsibility, that they'll end up be able to collect more information. And it is within staff's intention in order to do a fulsome kind of targeting communication plan as was done previously. And Elections Ontario does provide further kind of opportunities or aspects for municipalities to publish information in order to get more people out there to be aware of the fact, like, hey, check your name on the voters list. So hopefully that will assist in this.
Councillor Vaughn.
Thank you. So when I'm going back to the last election because it's most fresh in my head, when the opportunity came for people to actually go on and see if they're registered, I think that happened around the June timeframe, and then it got cut off pretty quick, like in early July. So people's headsets weren't even there. So a lot of people missed that whole boat. And I'm just wondering, do we have a timeline, or do we envision getting a timeline from the province so that we can take a look at that? Because I thought that was an awfully short period of time to get people aware and get on that voters list. Because I know it's every time we go through this election, we go through this kind of process. And
Madam Clerk.
So through the chair, so yes, even like at this point in time, members can register for the election. It is your year out, but Elections Ontario has the ability for you to check on their website to see if you are a registered elector. So it is likely at this point in time that the deadline will be similar to the last election. So there's a timeline provided for when the final approved voters list, like when that gets set by a certain date. Anybody who isn't on that time, there's still the opportunity for them to register, but usually it's you register in at Town Hall. The Elections Ontario website does provide a pretty smooth process for you to register as a voter. Yeah, it is an ongoing thing that staff can start posting information and publishing that out there sooner, just to get everybody aware and go from there.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Oak?
Yeah, hopefully with some more time, they'll figure it out, because I know Elections Ontario messed up voter cards this time. There was people that were told to go vote back at Grand Cove that were supposed to be voting in Exeter here. And so hopefully that it's not a rush situation, that they've got more time to figure it out and straighten it out. But yeah, the verdict's still out on Elections Ontario in my books to see that they get it right. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any notices of motion?
There are none.
Thank you. Items for discussion arising from previous meetings. Councillor McLeod-Hagan, please.
Yes, I'm asking that I be added to attend the OSUM in Collingwood this year.
Okay, and so Madam Clerk.
So if we could have a resolution of council that South Huron Council authorize the clerk to complete registration for the 2025 OSAM conference for Councillor McLeod-Higgett.
Yes, I do. It doesn't exactly fit under items for discussion from previous meetings, but I just found out today that the registration for the FCM conference, May 29th to June 1, opens up on March 11th. And as that's sort of in the middle of two council meetings, I would like to attend. And so I'd be looking for council approval on that as well, so we can get it organized on registration day.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
So just for clarification, sorry, through the chair on process, as this item's been brought up under new business, in order for a resolution to be passed at this time, we would need a motion to suspend the rules to do, and it would need a 2/3 approval. Otherwise, it goes to the next meeting agenda for council consideration.
And when's the deadline for registration?
So I'm unsure of when the deadline for registration is, but if it opens on March 10th, then usually you want to try to get in as soon as possible.
Okay, would we have a mover to suspend the process? Go ahead, Councillor Oak. So he moves to suspend the procedural bylaw. Is there a second for that? Councillor McLeod-Higgett. Any discussion on that? If there's not, call the question. All in favor. That carries with 7. Very well.
So the motion would be that South Huron Council authorizes the clerk to complete registration for the 2025 FCM conference for Councillor Vaughn.
Okay, so moved, Deputy. Seconded by Councillor McLeod-Higgett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor. That carries with 7. Thank you. Okay, very well. Is there anything else under new business or items arising while we're in those two? Not singing. Okay, Mayor and Councillor comments and announcements. Are there any announcements? Councillor McLeod-Higgett, please.
Yes, through you, Mayor. So a week ago, Saturday was the coldest night of the year walk. To date, we have raised $77,868. So that's about $25,000 above what our goal was. There were 121 walkers, which was 18 teams. Great turnout. All of the volunteers, can't thank them enough. And we are looking forward to next year's event.
Great. Any other comments at this time? I was at the walk. It was well attended, and kudos to the staff and the people who put that together. It was amazing, and all the people that worked hard to raise funds. Any other comments at this time? Seeing, okay. Just give you an overview of what the mayor's been up to for the last little while. On February 20th, I attended the Next Year Night Church and spoke to a number of residents at their friendship night and described the correlation between being a mayor and my policing career. I brought different items for the guests to learn about, and I know they were quite pleased with the presentation and had lots of questions. On February 22nd, I attended and welcomed, as I say, about the coldest night of the year, 100 people plus to that event. And again, very well done. Kudos to everyone who participated in that. 24th of February, attended the ABCA Flood Emergency Planning meeting at the Exeter Legion with delegates from across the region. Very informative session, and several staff members were also in attendance. And we should be thankful we have such a positive relationship with the ABCA and how important it is to keep that relationship strong. On the 27th of February, I was invited by Minister Thompson to attend her victory reception at Wingham Golf and Country Club. It was a packed house, and without surprise, Minister Thompson will begin her 5th term. I also sent a congratulatory message to Premier Ford for his win, and we look forward to working together with the province to achieve more prosperity for South Huron, especially with the threat and tariffs we're now facing. Those are the things that I've been up to. If there's nothing further, we move on to the next items. Communications, Ms. Sewell-Carlson.
15.1, 15.2, 15.3, 15.4.
Full.
15.5.
Full.
15.6,
Hold that.
15.7,
Pull.
that included 15.7.1.1, 15.7.1.2, 15.7.2, 15.7.3. Okay, 15.8, 15.9,
Pull that.
15.10, 15.11, 15.12, 15.13, 15.14, and that's 0.14.1 and 0.14.2, 15.15,
Pull.
that's 15.15.1, 15.15.2, and 15.15.3.
Very well. 15.4, I believe Councilor McLeod Haggett and Councilor Need pulled that. Go ahead, Councilor Need, go ahead.
So this is correspondence from the Exeter Legion. They're applying for a Trillium grant, and they're looking to request funding from the Trillium Foundation for doors making them handicapped accessible. And so they're wondering if they could get a letter of support from the municipality. And do we need a resolution, or I'd be willing to make that motion that we provide a letter of support to the Legion.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
That South Huron Council provide a letter of support for the Exeter Legion Branch 167's application to the Trillium Grant Program.
So move, Councilor Need.
So moved.
Councilor Oak seconds. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor, and that carries with 7. Thank you. 15.5, Councilor McLeod Haggett, go ahead.
Yes, so Huron Waves is looking for a letter of support. Again, for their Huron Waves that they're looking to bring June 1st to the 21st. So I look for a resolution to do a letter of support, recognizing that March 4th, I believe, is when they would need the letter, which unfortunately is tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
That South Huron Council provide a letter of support for the Huron Waves Music Festival application to the Ontario Cultural Attraction Fund.
So move, Councilor McLeod Haggett. Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor, and that carries with 7. Thank you. The next item is 15.6. I asked for that to be pulled, and I'd just like to comment that Mr. Voisin has expressed a really good bunch of comments here that we should be looking at favorably. Of course, there's only so much we can do as a lower tier. There's further discussion about another ride sharing component that could be looked at also, but Mr. Voisin, of course, well-respected businessman, very successful, and he sees the value in public transit. So just want to put it on the radar there that we should continue to look at that. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor, on that, and maybe this is something that we keep in mind for a future delegation, maybe at AMO or something like that, to the right area that we can keep lobbying for some upper tier help with this.
I'm not sure through process if we can even forward this on to the province as support. Would that be something we could do, Ms. O'Callaghan? What's your thoughts?
This particular communication, I think, is in support of Lambton Shores, Huron Shores area transit. What I can say is that I had been speaking with their CAO, and he's actually attending Lucan Bidolph, their council meeting this evening. But I would imagine, because we're getting close to the end of March, we will need to, probably something at our next council meeting will come back from me, like an update memo for that.
Okay, very well.
I know that didn't answer the question, but I just thought I'd give you that update as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Councillor McLeod Haggett.
Yes, I would like to kind of follow along this too and potentially see in our upcoming budget for 2026 where we could maybe move this in somewhere.
Okay, Ms. O'Callaghan, any comment?
Through the mayor, I believe at this point, what we will be getting back is a request from Huron Shores Area Transit as to whether or not council is interested, should the funding be successful. I think it was the OTIF funding that they were applying for. Should it be successful, then that would be the question that comes back to council. And that'll be likely next meeting because the deadline is the end of the month.
Very good. Councillor Vaughn, please.
Are we also expecting by next meeting to get some indication of how, I know he's meeting with Lucan tonight, Steve is, but how it's been received at the other municipalities that are a part of this? Because again, remember, it was the big juggling act that if somebody bows out, everybody else's prices were going to go up. So just to give us a sense of what are we being asked to contribute?
Mr. Sue Colson.
Through the mayor, yes. And from what I think we got from Steve, it's all for one. Yeah, everybody needs to be involved, or it's not going to work. So I will follow up with him and have that to come back as well.
We certainly do some advocacy at AMO, I would think would be a good opportunity if see where it all plays out at this time. So thank you for everyone for your comments. Anything else on that? Move on to 15.7.1. Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Finch. This is 15.7.1. And I just wanted to thank Selena, Denise, and staff for their work on the official plan. It's been a long process, but I'm appreciative of the work you've done to get public input, including all of the public sessions held. I was hoping to get some clarification on the movement of 4 stories to 6 stories on buildings fronting Main Street in Exeter. So the Heritage Committee has expressed some concern about the potential of 6 stories dwarfing a lot of the buildings on Main Street. So currently there's an allowance of 4 stories in the old official plan, but I'm wondering if you could comment on why it's 6 or not 5 or 7 or yeah.
Welcome, Selena, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor. The main theme behind this change in the official plan and many others is intensification. With this change in mind, sort of 3 points of interest stick out. The first being that, the province does encourage and require municipalities to promote intensification where possible. And so the historic core is considered to be an area where it is feasible. The second piece is just in terms of servicing and protecting farmland. We know that by concentrating units where there's existing servicing, it's a cheaper way to service those units. And then we're also preventing further potential farmland sprawl in the future. And then the third point is more revolving around complete communities, which is something we've talked about a little bit with this review, and we're adding more language into the official plan as part of this review. So the idea being that we know that folks being within walkable proximity to recreational opportunities, community facility opportunities, that is shown to promote a better sense of well-being for those folks. So we're hoping that by allowing, increased residential intensification near the core, there's a bit of a reciprocal effect. It's good for those folks, but it's hopefully also going to be good for the core and those commercial uses in the long term. So that was sort of the thinking behind the change.
Councillor Neeb, comment?
Thank you. And just to follow up too, because just in terms of process and how our official plans work, let's say hypothetically, in some hypothetical world, the official plan, it was left at 4 stories. Down the road, could a developer propose an amendment to 6 and then be well within their legal rights to propose that to council and have steady standing if, say, there was an appeal to the OLT?
Yeah, through the mayor, that's exactly correct. So in theory, options being leaving the maximum height at 4 stories or going to 6 stories. If the maximum height was left at 4 stories and a developer came along looking to propose 6, they would go through an official plan amendment as part of that process. Certainly, depending on the outcome of that application, there would be opportunity for appeal. I think the notion is that the market demand is going to drive whether or not 6 stories is eventually capitalized upon. I think the idea here is we're trying to provide flexibility where possible so that if that demand is there, it's one less layer of planning application that someone needs to go through in order to bring that to fruition.
Thank you. Anything follow?
Nope, thank you.
Good, thank you. Anything further on that? Thank you. 15 point, sorry, Councillor Neeb, go ahead, sir.
I'd be kicking myself if I didn't have one other question. This has to do with 15.7.12 and in regards to the updating the appendix in the official plan, just that there's a few properties that are designated but are not included on that list. I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on the next steps.
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor, appreciate that comment being brought forward. The Appendix A is an appendix that just lists the designated properties in South Huron. There is a statement in that appendix that it may be updated without an official plan amendment. And the idea there being that the official plan is not the tool through which we designate properties. And so as properties are added or subtracted from that list should be brought current as appropriate. So with the recent feedback if the official plan is approved as proposed, we'll ensure that the consolidated version contains that up-to-date list of designated properties, and then moving forward is updated as appropriate as the Heritage Registry is amended.
Thank you. Good. Thank you. Anything else on that? Okay, very well. 15.9, I'm just wondering if anyone in council would like to support that. If not, we can move on to Councillor Neeb. You want to support that? So moved. Councillor Oak seconds that. Any discussion on 15.9 in support? Okay, there's no discussion. I call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Next item will be 15.15. Councillor Neeb, I believe.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Finch. So as you recall, at our last meeting, we received a report from council, a report from staff in regards to the tariffs. Towards the end of the report, it detailed a number of recommendations from staff, mainly to do with providing support to the province of Ontario and their Canada First approach, but also there were items too about working with the BIA and the Chamber of Commerce and others to promote buy local. So I was going to bring this up at one point with the business arising from previous minutes, but I thought just be easier to maybe support one of the resolutions, particularly the resolution from the town of Fort Frances. And I'd just like to make that motion. It outlines a lot of the things that our staff said in that report, and I think it's important that we provide some direction or indication of what we would like staff to do in regards to the tariff threat. Again, working with the BIA and Chamber, I think is a incredibly positive move that we need to make and foster that relationship with those organizations from the staff level.
Great, thank you. So moved. Is there a seconder for that? Anyone wish to second? Councillor Oak, seconds.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Comment?
And yeah, I agree that there's I would support supporting the Fort Frances resolution. You know, and we talked about also sending maybe a letter to AMO and FCM and supporting their initiatives in this as well, because they've got committees that are working on this and moving information forward and working with the province and the FCM with the federal government too. So I think anything that we can do to encourage our bodies that are representing the municipalities, AMO and FCM, I would support as well. So.
Good, thank you. And as we know today, President Trump mentioned today that as of tomorrow morning, the tariffs take place. So advocacy is our best tool. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Vaughn had something. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a small thing. If we're going to be following this particular resolution, we just better make sure we call Doug Ford as opposed to Doug Fort.
I think everyone knows who he is. Thank you. But good point. Any other comments? Okay. So moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Is there further discussion? If not, call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And on to their recommendation, please.
That South Huron Council receive communication items not otherwise dealt with.
I move her, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. There's no closed session under 16, therefore no report from closed session under 17. Go to 18.1, our bylaws. Ms. Basula Collison.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 2025, being a bylaw to amend the municipality of South Huron official plan.
And a mover, please. Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Oak. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
I see
yeah.
your hand go up there.
Yeah, I guess, with Selena here, I wonder if she could maybe, there's a report there and maybe a high level, of any changes that, are in this version versus the last version that we had.
Thank you. Through the mayor, not many notable changes. The two of note would be that we have added encouraging aggregate recycling as part of aggregate operations. That's a requirement under the PPS, so that's just coming straight from there. And then that statement that was mentioned earlier about Appendix A being amendable without a formal official plan amendment. Those were the two changes since February 18th in the final version that I'll note.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Oak.
Thank you, Mayor. The one item we didn't discuss and came in late was 1573, which is part of the official plan. Just wanting to know the process. If today the property that CVD Exeter has is highway, commercial, and industrial, if and they're recommending or they're suggesting that they'd like to see it, and they have been working on this for a year or so, residential instead of highway, commercial, and industrial. Just wondering what the process would be if we pass the official plan this way, the steps that they would have to get or take to change that highway, commercial to residential. If so be it.
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor, that's a great question. There would need to be a justification brought forward at the time of an official plan amendment for that change from highway commercial to residential. I think there's a question in staff's mind as to whether or not that would be a premature move at this time. The main reason being that residential is a more sensitive land use than highway commercial. So there would need to be consideration given to those existing uses, both to the south, that industrial designation to the east, and then those commercial uses across Highway 4 as well. So as part of that official plan amendment process, it would be on the developer to basically demonstrate that whether it be through buffering of some sort or whether demonstrating that there would be no negative impact, that that residential use is indeed compatible and is the best use of that land. I think noting as well that this is a highway commercial property that it is fronting onto Highway 4. So we want to make sure that we're making the best and highest use of that parcel at that time, if that answers your question, Councillor.
Councillor Oak.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, that answered my question. And just as a follow-up, I guess I would like to, it would have to be good clarification why the change, because I'm still a little bit concerned in our official plan whether we have enough commercial and industrial land in the municipality designated, and so I'm sort of leery of removing any further. So.
Thank you. Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, so just a clarifying question. Is that an official plan amendment or is that a application for a zoning bylaw change?
Yeah, through the mayor, that's a great question. I believe those lands off the top of my head are zoned for development. So it would be an official plan amendment to basically change the high level direction for that parcel. The official plan would dictate at this point in time that those lands, the portion of that parcel designated highway commercial, should be a highway commercial use at the time of development. So it would be, and one may come in with a joint application that often occurs at the time of development where they're looking to amend both the official plan and zoning based on a concept plan. It would ultimately depend what the developer brings forward, but to answer your question, to go from highway commercial to residential there, it would be an official plan amendment.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Vaughn? Nope. Okay. Councillor Oak.
Yeah, just also, so we have a schedule for Crediton and the the 17 acres has been removed from the one property. And I guess wondering the steps that would have to be taken if they were to come with this proposed subdivision proposal that they're working on. What would be the steps that somebody would have to take if that 17 acres is required to be in their layout to satisfy the settlement area, because it's not currently in the proposed settlement area, and that what would be the steps needed for that?
Thank you. Through the mayor. So as was discussed on the 18th, the comprehensive review requirement is no longer a requirement to expand a settlement area boundary. So if a developer were coming forward and looking to make use of those 17 acres as part of a concept plan, they would require an official plan amendment, and that official plan amendment would need to speak to the criteria for a settlement area expansion. It's the same criteria that was outlined in that February 18th staff report for our own justification for expanding respectively Greater Grand Bend and Exeter. Presumably with that as well, given that a lot of the discussion to date has been whether or not there's a market demand for this change, there'd be sort of a fulsome number of submissions being that market analysis justifying the scope of that development, and then of course a functional servicing report to demonstrate that that development is serviceable, alongside potentially others like archaeological assessments, which would be narrowed down at the time of submission. But in short, they would need to do an official plan amendment to bring that 17 acres back in, should council proceed currently as proposed with de-designating that land.
Councillor Oak.
So thank you. And what just piqued my interest was that Caroline Baker tonight said that they've been holding off coming forward with that proposal until all this discussion is. So it sounds like there might be something coming forward, and I guess I just, or potentially coming forward. So I'm just wondering, yeah. We're leaving the whole section below that the Palin property below that's had 30 years to develop, and they've built 10 houses in 30 years. And so I'm not sure if it's a capacity issue or not, because I don't know what might happen with the property to the south of the road. So yeah. I'm just trying to wrap my head around whether we should be including that 17 acres or not, and save somebody a lot of frustration doing an official plan amendment.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Vaughn.
Yeah, I know we've been doing a bit of flip-flopping about what we used to have in the official plan, and then we wanted to reduce the official plan. And now we have a developer coming with the concept plan, but no application for using the whole of what it used to be. And somewhere in all of that, this is kind of confusing for the members of the public that I've been speaking to. So there is a sentiment coming up from what I'm hearing in the neighborhood that by council going back from option C to this new proposed concept, we're basically bypassing public consultation altogether. So I think that myself. So I'm for leaving it at option C, because we bounced back and forth far too much, and to make a last minute decision today, I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, not seeing any. So we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. Oh, sorry, Councillor, get something. Turn your mic on, please.
Yeah, I guess I just I'm not 100% sure what to do on that property. So I'm just spitballing because I really don't know. I see both sides. I see that they've got significant probably half of that property in green space that isn't going to be built on either. So part of that based on the map that's there, part of the the settlement area is going to be like the stormwater and parkland. It's not all going into houses either. So yeah, and the argument as well that a lot of the area that isn't built on further to the east isn't going to be possibly built on because it is floodplain too. Yeah, my thought is we'd include the whole property, but.
Councillor Neep, you have a comment?
I guess my only comment, and we've seen this with a number of developments throughout the municipality, is when we do have a big subdivision, it doesn't tend to appear out of nowhere. It does take an amount of time for it to grow, and so you know, I've thought, you know, both ways about this parcel and the reduction or not reducing, but I think there is a suitable amount of land left to develop. If there is the potential for growth going that way, then that area could be added to the settlement as well. So I don't think by reducing it, we're limiting any opportunity for development. I think it's we received a report from our planner, and it's based on sound judgment and the Planning Act. So I think we do have enough reason to move ahead with their recommendation. I don't think they'd make it if it was going to put us in a position of liability. So I think I'm comfortable moving forward, but I also think too, like, any opportunity for development is great, but this reduction of the 17 acres does not prevent development.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? It's been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, we'll call a question. All in favor? And that carries with 6. Thank you. Next item will be 19.1, please.
The South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 21, 2025, being a bylaw to confirm matters addressed at the March 3rd, 2025 council meeting.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Dietrich, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. And 20, please.
The South Huron Council hereby adjourn at 7:46 p.m. to meet again on March 17th, 2025 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Neeb. No discussion. Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending this evening.